transforming South Africa though, in our image. And that image is not only an image in terms of demographics, but it's also an image in terms of our value system, the image of how we think society should be constructed as professionals. Because as a BMF, we have professionals who affiliate to different political parties. Right? So there's no way you will find a BMF standing up and endorsing a political party, because our members are part of different political affiliations. So we don't do that. And secondly, when it comes to that, we would challenge different political parties' views, invite all of them, or the top four, to come and engage them on these matters of transformation. So I think our work is even more cut out post the election, because we really have to find a way, depending on how government is going to be formed. We don't know. Everyone is speculating left, right, and center. The markets are also speculating as well. If you saw the reactions in the market this week, that is also quite telling. And what business has actually said coming out of Business Leadership South Africa, what they have been saying, if you've been following. So you can tell that something is coming, and we also need to position ourselves accordingly in order to influence this new space that we're going to find ourselves in, operating in the political environment. And of course, as Dr. Rolkoza likes to say, who is one of our stalwarts, he likes to say that South Africa is a political economy. Right? So you can't separate the politics and the economy. So it's a complex environment. And he further states that as a leader, you need to have a basket full of frameworks. You can't be one-dimensional in leading in this kind of environment. It's going to get even more complex now going forward. So we need more dynamism in terms of how we advocate our views and drive our agenda, because the political economy is going to change again, and we need to we really need to position ourselves a certain way. So I'll just highlight a few things. Some of them is already implied as well, and not belabor the points, and we don't have a lot of time, so we must also allow the acting president to speak. But here's a fundamental question, therefore, why the BMF? Why BMF? Why BMF? Why should it exist? So we like to say that in trying to answer this question, that the BMF is not operating independently of the broader agenda for economic transformation. So the BMF is part and parcel of the whole spectrum of black organizations that are trying to achieve a particular agenda when it comes to transformation. So it's not just BMF, but there's a host of other organizations. Number two, in trying to understand what all these organizations are trying to achieve, we define it as they're trying to ensure that black people get into irreversible economic spaces, or their gains must be irreversible. Right? So in every aspect of transformation, black people must not experience reverse. Right? So all of them are trying to achieve that end, and we try to achieve that end in a variety of ways, and I'll get into that shortly. So it's not just the Black Management Forum, but you also have NAFCOC, which is the oldest black professional organization, and recently Dr. Sam Mutsunyane passed away. He was one of the founders of NAFCOC, and as we know, the founding father of African Bank. And we know that throughout the years, they've lost control of African Bank, and as we speak now, there's a consortium that's trying to gain back a controlling share of African Bank. As we talk now, he died wanting to control African Bank again. Right? So that was his dying wish at age 97, that African Bank must come back and be controlled by black people. So even at his memorial service, that was the resounding call, that black people must regain control of African Bank. So it's not just NAFCOC. So NAFCOC is the oldest black professional organization. Then there's BMF. So we're the second oldest black professional organization. Out of BMF, then you have ABASA, right, the Chartered Accountants and Accountants. They came out of BMF. So the founders of Abasa were also members of the BMF. And then BMF also gave birth to UPSIP. Those are the investment professionals and bankers in South Africa. So when you see black professionals in the financial services sector space, when they deal with transformational issues, they go to UPSIP. And UPSIP was also birthed by BMF. The founders of Black Lawyers Association as well were members of the Black Management Forum. Right? So BMF keeps giving birth. Right? It's a mother. It gives birth to things, to other organizations. So that's what it has done. And also gave birth to the Black Business Council in 1998, or should I say the first Black Business Council, because later on the BBC closed down, and it was closed down by black people. That's another story for another day. But the first BBC, also birthed by the BMF, and some leaders in the BMF became senior leaders in the Black Business Council as well. So there's a lot of things the BMF has birthed, right? But I'm saying that all these organizations are trying to achieve this particular end. And the reason why the others came out of BMF is because BMF were a management, right? Black management. So everyone converges here. And so the accountants said, look, we understand we converge here, but we also want to drive transformation specifically to our industry. So accounting, audit, etc. So let's come out and focus on that particular industry. A lot of them then had dual membership as well. So Abasa, BMF, BLA, the lawyers, same thinking. Let's focus on our specific professions and industries, and then we have dual membership with the Black Management Forum as well. So all of them then came out of BMF and trying to drive. There's even more now. We've got the triple B professionals. I'm sure you know of them as well, which have also come out. And even when you speak to them again, they pay homage to the BMF, because BMF have a lot of things. So it's important to note that by giving birth, it means that the agenda to drive transformation is so great that not one organization can carry it. It's too great to drive the transformation agenda. I mean, a simple example is, you look at the education system, you look at the current numbers. If you look at the economically active population of the country versus how many graduates we have, in terms of percentage, it's about 6% of that have degrees in the country. I mean, it's an astounding statistic. And then Africans in particular, it's about 3.4, 3.5% of people who look like us in the country who have degrees. That includes undergrads, postgrad, all the way to doctorate. So those numbers are moving slowly. So LinkedIn may look like, hey, we are getting educated, which is good, but it may also give you a false understanding of the deep-seated problem around education in the country. Because, I mean, there's some other black professionals who say, yeah, no, blacks are educated. Look at us on LinkedIn. So, but how many users are on LinkedIn? Let's start there. It's not 60 million in South Africa. Facebook is the biggest platform in the country in terms of usage. But LinkedIn is about what, 4 million, 5 million? Already now that tells you, if you look at that number, of course the majority there will be black who are educated, which is good, but it's not fully representative of the crisis of education in the country. It's just looking at degrees specifically. And of course, there's that debate of the intellectual needs of the country and the technical side of things as well. So that's just one example in terms of there's so much that still needs to be done in terms of driving transformation, because it's layered. There are many layers to driving transformation. It's not just getting black people into certain spaces only, but there's other layers to transformation and try and sustain that agenda. So therefore, because there's such a massive elephant to eat, excuse the pun, but a massive elephant to eat, we had NAFCO that was focusing on the development of black businesses in the townships. That was their focus. And then that's what they decided to do. We just want to develop black businesses in the townships. And then BMF, okay, we want to focus on the development of managerial leadership, right? Not developing black businesses. So as much as today we have an SMME desk, but the mandate of SMME development does not rest in the BMF, because that's not our mandate or chosen mandate. It happens to be an add-on to the mandate, but it's not the main thing, right? So the mandate of developing businesses, black businesses, is lying elsewhere. So we're trying to see how the BMF can use its voice and influence even in the SMME space. But in terms of the actual core mandate, the core mandate is about the development of managerial leadership. We're still together, colleagues. So all of them trying to define themselves in a particular space. So which part of this elephant are we going to eat? We'll eat the foot. We'll focus on the foot. This one will focus on the trunk. This one will focus on the left foot, etc. And that's how we try to eat this great elephant piece by piece. So how did they try to do it in terms of structure? All of them structured similarly in terms of how to approach transformation. So there's about 7 pillars which can be quite helpful. Number one, in trying to drive transformation, all of them network. All of them network. The founder of the BMF, by the way, is still alive, Mr. Eric Mafuna. And when we discuss some of these things, and it's a great privilege for us to be still engaging the founders, and some of them are still alive, he likes to kind of pick this issue around networking, because networking is premised on relationship building. You've got to build relationships. You can't just knock on someone's door and expect a particular response and support. You've got to actively build that relationship. And he keeps on, every time we speak, he keeps on nudging this thing, especially with my office now that I've entered. He keeps on nudging to say, build relationships, rebuild relationships, rebuild it. It's coming out of my ears now, you know. So every time we talk, rebuild relationships, Monday. Spend more time there. Spend 50, 60, 70% of your time as the MD of the BMF building relationships, because that will unlock other opportunities for the organization. Yes, ops is important, yes, but please spend more time building relationships. So the organizations, all of them, they try to network. Then how they structure their networking is completely up to them. So when we then started, as the chair had said, in networking, coming together to try and see how we support. And as we come together, like we did earlier, I'm from this particular industry, this is my experience, etc. That's what they would do. That's what when they would come together, share experiences, and out of that, how do we then support each other going forward? Interesting story for you. In the early days, one of our members actually was killed by the special branch. One of the reasons was because the BMF started, well, the idea started around 72. So 72, 3, 4, then 76, the bigger group came together, legally 1981. But between the mid-70s towards the legal 1981, I mean, some of our members disappeared and left because the government was told that it sounds like there's a new organization that is starting, right, in Johannesburg, etc. So they were tailing the organization. Now, because they were professionals, they were not overtly political, right? They were not a political party, but they were camouflaged. And Don Connors would say, the late Don would say, we were dressed in corporate clothes, right? But articulating political positions. So that kind of disturbed the establishment. These guys are professionals, but they're articulating political views. And that was quite an interesting period. So that's about late 80s or so when that really started to shake leadership spaces. But you know, it's very critical to understand that you know, some of our members then, you know, disappeared. The original manuscripts also disappeared, by the way, with one of the guys that fled to the Eastern Cape, etc. So some very interesting war stories, as they would call them, of our founding as the BMF. So networking key. All of them have got that networking part. But for some strange reason, there's some people who feel like Why should we network? We're wasting our time. So the CEO may say, I'm hosting something somewhere. And some black professional will say, I can't make it. And we've had this in Weber team as well, even nowadays. But that's where decisions are made. I mean, that's where in informal spaces. And that's why, I mean, the founder would also say to me, try get them out of the office, right? Try get these guys you're targeting out of the office. Because when you have too much formal engagement, it creates a lot of tension, especially if you want to close something, right? So if you just understand what they like, or what they like to do, or get out there. That's why there's in big corporates there's massive budgets for corporate affairs, etc., and dealing with clients, and it's not entertainment. Right? So it's really to build relationships, but to also ensure that whatever agenda you're trying to push takes place. So we must not shy away from those type of things in terms of networking, because there's so many people who are gathering in informal places. And I mean, there was a time in this country where the black middle class was moving into playing golf, as an example. Playing golf, let's play golf. Golf, we know golf is not just about the sport, it's about power. A lot of the decisions made in the country are made on the golf course. And now the middle class is cycling now. So if you see, so the playing golf, let's cycle. It's not just about cycling. It's really not really about that. It's really about the relationship and what you guys can come up with during there. Or let's go for drinks, right? Middle class likes to say, let's go for drinks, or let's do coffee, etc. Those taglines, they pull. And when you go and sit with someone in an informal space, you're able to get to know them better, and you're able to interact with them at a more deeper level, and you are able then to either build or drive whatever agenda you want to drive. So the founder likes to hit on this point quite a bit, to say we've got to network better as black people. That's the first thing that all these organizations have been trying to do. Number two, they've all been trying to advocate. So let's advocate, let's talk, let's structure, because there's so many ideas. Then how do we get them out there into the public space? So one of the things that we established in the 80s, we've got a publication called African Leader. It was previously known as Black Leader in the 80s. And we used that as well as a platform to drive an advocacy agenda. Now, another little bit piece of history. The first 10 years of the BMF, there was no advocacy per se. So it was just coming together, how do we support each other, and we're even utilizing spaces like this in corporates, where some of our members at the time were working in those corporate spaces as well. Then there was also this other interesting place. It was known as the Seminole Place in downtown Joburg, the old Carlton Hotel. And that phrase was, meet me at the Carlton. Because the Carlton Hotel was the only place in the country where a black person would not be arrested, because it's an international space. So whites would be very careful if they saw you and I in that place, would not be arrested. So BMF strategically would meet where? At the Carlton, because there was that protection, so to speak. But once you get out of the Carlton, then you must be very strategic as how you get home. So that was the other thing. So meet me at the Carlton, and then maybe today, that seminal statement can say something else. But then it was meet me at the Carlton. So any black professional heard that phrase, meet me at the Carlton, they knew exactly what it meant. It meant that the BMF and other black leadership were going to meet at the Carlton hotel at some point or another. So advocacy in the BMF started around the state of emergency. So mid-80s, state of emergency, because previously we were not really saying much about corporate. But then after the state of emergency, and then we also had new leaders come in who were challenging the organization internally. He said, no, but you say, and I'll quote in verbatim, these old guys, and both of them are passed away now. So they said to the gatherers, you guys say that you are apolitical. You are apolitical. They would laugh. You are apolitical. But your very existence is political. You are a creation of the social-political environment. How can you say you are apolitical? So they brought that thing in there, and they said, no, we understand, but how do we drive the development of managerial leadership when there's something wrong with the environment? So now we must deal with the environment as we drive that agenda. That's how advancing socio-economic transformation in our vision and mission comes into play. So it comes in as a result of members deciding, okay, let's add to the vision. We're not only about the empowerment or the development of managerial leadership, but also advancing socio-economic transformation. So that's the reason why it came in, because the environment is toxic. How do we expect to grow if we don't start to deal with the issues, the socio-economic issues, so that black talent can flourish in the country and beyond? Then that gave birth to the first human resources transformational model in South Africa as the result of the work of the BMF. So the BMF then started to think about how do we transform corporate spaces, corporate transformation, workplace transformation, and at that time, because a lot of them were employed in multinational corporations, Philips, Shell, Unilever, you name it. A lot of our stalwarts were employed in those places. And some of them, those who were United States-based parent companies with the US, were driven by the Sullivan Codes. Right? So the Sullivan Codes are a forerunner to affirmative action. So they benefited from the drive of the Sullivan Codes and the forerunner to affirmative action. And then when later on in the 80s, they started to focus on advocacy and affirmative action in South Africa. That then led to the 1993 affirmative action blueprint of the BMF. And as a result of the affirmative action blueprint of the BMF, it then led to the promulgation of the Employment Equity Act in 1998. 60% of the Employment Equity Act, its thinking, has been birthed by the BMF. So that is the history of the major advocacy in the 90s and where it came from. And then it was, I wouldn't say overshadowed, but there was the promulgation in 1998. Then in 2000, there was the first Employment Equity Commission report, and the rest is history. So that drive started then in the late 80s to drive affirmative action to ensure that we transform corporate. So BMF is accredited with the first human resources transformational model of corporate, and we called it in the affirmative action blueprint the Basotho hat model. So if you look at the Basotho hat, it was superimposed onto the pattern grading system, and corporates were coming in numbers. When you talk to the stalwarts who were around that time, they'll tell you, like your Ndate Makwana, former ESCOM chairperson, was employed in the BMF at that time of the affirmative action blueprint. So when you speak to him and others, they'll tell you that when they were done with that blueprint, corporate was coming in droves to come and take the blueprint. On top of that, what BMF also did was develop what we call affirmative action brokers, who then became your HR executives and directors later on, and HR managers, etc. And they were hatched from the BMF as well. And a lot of BMF members, especially in that time, in terms of their career and professions, they were moving towards the HR function space, amongst other spaces, but that one was a key component, and BMF was really a hatching ground to that. So promulgation 1998, and then in 1997, and if you look at the history of black economic empowerment, before it was broad-based, there were already BE deals in the early 90s. So your nail, etc. Massive BE transactions. I mean, I think nails transaction in 91, 92, 93, somewhere there, was about 2 billion rand at that time. It was quite massive. And you know that over time, some of those transactions were underwater. But BM's problem with the whole BE that was happening before it became law was that there's no structured way, just like affirmative action in the blueprint, there was no blueprint for PE in the country. So it was just done haphazardly. So again, it was BMF that said, let the country discuss this matter. This is now 1997. Let's discuss this matter. Let's call a commission to deal with this matter. And they lobbied the senior political leadership, and then the, should I say current president of the country? Okay, current president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, chaired the commission at the time. So, and then that's how Black Business Council was birthed as well. So the oversight of BEE and the work of the commission was sitting with the Black Business Council as well. And the groundbreaking report of 2001 took place, and then again BMF looked at that because some of our BMF leaders were in and signatories as well of that report, which is available online. In your spare time, you can have a look at it as well. So then 2003, the law comes into being, also because of the drive of advocacy work of the Black Management Forum. So yeah, I'm moving ahead and back in terms of my presentation because I don't have time. So that's been the advocacy work of BMF, and of course there's others that have advocated. Number 3, in achieving this agenda with all of the organizations, they started to focus on policy and legislation in order to drive it. And I've just stated what we've been part of. NAFCOC as well also had their own economic plan as well, which they were trying to influence the incoming ANC leadership at the time. So it was many ideas. BMF was coming up with its own ideas, NAFCOC and other black organizations and black leadership. There was also, I think, there's a Black Business Caucus. I mean, there's so many of them. Very rich history of black leadership in the country. It's currently not, in my view, it's currently not adequately recorded. So I think there's another area that needs attention at some point, that we record that rich history and the role that they play in bringing down apartheid in business. Number 5, another way of driving this agenda is partnering with white business. So there was something called the Business Trust, which also happened in the early 90s. It was also set up, and some of the criticism by black leadership of the Business Trust was that they would say that the Business Trust, these white business leaders are trying they're trying to, I'm trying to find the right way. No, I keep weekend, the English. They're trying to numb their conscience on what they have done to black people by setting up some of these structures. In a nutshell, that was the criticism. And you can see coming up at the TRC, to the Reconciliation Commission. And let me just check my time here. I must head towards some kind of closure. But to the Reconciliation Commission, it came up even more. The criticism of white business by black business particularly. So we made a submission as well as BMF on the violations. The paper is called The Violations of White Business, White Established Business Against Human Rights. That was our paper that we delivered. Then we were called to the TRC to make further representation and defend, etc. Very interesting articulations. I've got some of those quotes here from that paper, but very interesting articulation that were made against white business. So we were not afraid, even at that time, as BMF, ACOC, and others really strongly came out to say, no, but you guys have done X, Y, and Z.
you're not really anti-apartheid, etc. Maybe I should read that quote for you, but it's a very interesting quote that we stated at the TRC. But anyway, yes, so there's that partnering with white business. Later, we see, because we have the political leadership saying we need to unify business in South Africa. So that came as well to say, there's so many business chambers, there's Saki, there's BSA, there's whatnot, and then in the black space, there's this massive cohort of black organizations. So there was that call to reorganize, reconfigure, partner with white business. Now, what then happened was there was a formation called BUSA, Business Unity South Africa. And then BUSA came, I think the first CEO of BUSA came from BMF. I think it was Ntate Jerry Viladazi, if my memory serves me well. He was the first CEO of BUSA, and he was a former MD of the BMF as well. So BMF again, part and parcel of taking up the call from political leadership, President Mbeki, President Mandela at the time, to say we need to unify black business, they need to speak in one voice, or black and white business. So let's bring everyone together. And that is where the BBC issue started to heat up quite a bit. Others were saying, no, let's close down let's close down the BBC, let's enter BUSA in a certain way. And there were massive contestations as well. BUSA came, BMF walked out of BUSA in 2011. We have not returned as a member of BUSA since 2011. So that is the partnering with white business that has tried to take place. And the reasons given in 2011 was that BUSA is basically wasting our time in terms of transformation, agenda. They're not doing all that they can. We know it for a fact. So we're staging a walkout. It's a massive, I'm sure some of you remember, massive issue that came about in 2011 in the walkout that was staged there by BMF and BBC at the time. Then BBC came back fully around 2013-14, and it's still there till today. So that has been the partnering side with white business. How have we fared? Look at the study of BUSA. BUSA, even now, if you look at their executive leadership, you look at their board, there's a lot of black people there. Our former president was also a former president of BUSA, Professor Mohale. He was the president of BUSA as well. More recently, but now he's no longer president of BUSA. But BUSA is there, and it's playing a role. And the point is, how do we influence it today going forward? I'll stop there on that one. Number 5, so all of them then, all these organizations then try to focus on their own specific programs. So then we looked internally to say, if we're developing managerial leadership, let's have programs. And then we did have exchange programs, guys went overseas, came back, we partnered with institutions of higher learning. Also must say that part of the original idea of the BMF from 74 was that we need to have, and Baba Mafuna again articulates this quite well. He would say, we wanted to, yes, create a home for black professionals, but number 2, we wanted to really focus on capacity building. Right? So if you look at the space that has been taken up by business schools, BMF wanted to do that, right? From 76 going that way. And we never really got to a place where we have our own school of, well, I call it the School of Leadership Practice, others say BMF Academy, etc. Others may call it the Eric Mafuna Business School, whatever name we're going to give it. It's still there in terms of an idea, but it was how do we still do it as BMF? And then in the interim, we partner with other organizations. Your Dr. Koza, he came up with a board program in the 80s. And of course, if you look at his history in terms of business leadership, he then started being involved in IOD, Institute of Directors, and the King Code, etc. So he always had that passion of board development specifically, and then it morphed into IOD, etc. So a lot of rich history. I can't get through it all, but yeah, we wanted to focus on our own program and develop around that. But we don't have our own business school at the moment. But it's still a desire of the organization to have that we say about the development of managerial leadership. How are we developing it today? So it's key. Then all the others, same thing, but in their different industries. So own specific program of action that is aligned to their specific mandate. And then I think lastly on this framework is that they would achieve it through shareholding or shareholder activism, right? Investing in. So that's why you saw in the mid-90s coming this way the advent of investment companies, especially with black people. So we then also started an investment company. So we've got an investment arm, there's BMF, which started, I think, legally 2000, if I'm correct. But the idea of a BMF investment company actually was there from early 90s. So 92, 93, it was already there. It was already coming up to say, we need our own investment company because these corporates that we want to transform, when they want to switch off the taps one day, how are we going to support the NPC? So that was the logic. So we need it, and also to then start driving shareholder activism. So let's have an investment company, let's invest in certain sectors, and you deploy board seats, etc. And we want to drive transformation agenda from a shareholder perspective now, right? So it's coming from a management point of view, what we've been driving, then the investment company was driving this agenda, not just ours, but many others. NUMSA Investment, if you look at NUMSA Investment's history as well, 360 Financial Services within the NUMSA Investment family, and many others. You look at the private equity today, there's some black players there, and all of it, you can tell that it's coming with that shareholder activism that is being driven there. I've kind of mixed my. Let me just mention the last thing, and then I'll sit down. I've got too many slides here. So, like I said, this presentation is, yeah. So last thing. So when you look at the business model of the BMF today and how it was then, so you have the capacity building side, so the developmental side in terms of a pillar, and then you have the forum side. So the forum side is what we're doing, coming together, engaging, conferencing falls under forum, mentorship will fall under forum aspect. So those type of things will fall under the forum. Then the developmental side is the program. So what kind of developmental programs specifically will fall under that side? That was the business model, so to speak. It had two legs to it. Then, like I said, later on in the late 80s, they added the advocacy aspect, the advocacy pillar. So we're now standing on three pillars: the forum, the developmental side, the advocacy side of the organization. Now, when the provinces, the branches interpret that, you need to, I like to say, we're simplifying the organization, that when you look at it at a branch level now, you've got these three pillars, which are your guiding pillars, guiding principles of organization. You say we're about the development of managerial leadership. How is the branch, as the chair will say, this is how we can develop, right? And you can partner with institutions of higher learning. I think tonight there's a celebration of 20 years of North West University. I think there's something like that happening tonight. I saw that in circulation. So you need to have a partnership with the university, not just university, but TVET as well. And you can drive a particular developmental agenda around that. Then the forum side of things. Forum side, how are you engaging? That's where your networking is coming in. How often are you meeting? You can meet just to come and share ideas, right? So ideation. How do we ideate around specific issues? That's where your conferencing is coming in as well. And I've been saying it to the different provinces and the board as well, that we need to go back to the provinces having their own provincial conferences, right? And obviously at national we can assist with that drive as well. It's good for the province. It's good for not just these partnerships with institutions of higher learning, but all your stakeholders, the businesses that are here, the government that's here as well. And you know one of the key economic drivers of the province, right? So when we organize a national conference, we're looking nationally, and there might be priorities there that might not necessarily align to the province economic development agenda. But you have that opportunity to bring all of your stakeholders in the province on a particular economic developmental agenda. And you can have your own conference. It doesn't have to be a massive conference in terms of scale, but in terms of coming together, bringing those key role players, developing those relationships with key political leaders and key business leaders and other chambers that are here in the province is critical, and BMF should lead that in every province, right? And we can support at a national level, but it should be moving at a provincial level. Then there's the third pillar, the advocacy piece, and the advocacy piece we are driving what's happening in the policy space, which policy issues you want to raise and drive, etc. We also have a national policy and research committee as well. So we are working on trying to align the national policy and research committee with province and branches. So we're still in the process of doing that because we've made that committee bigger. It used to be very small, but we felt there's so much to do in terms of policy and research. So let's open it up even wider, and let's make a call for more people to come in. As I sit down, on the advocacy part, just to tell you one thing that we're currently working on nationally. The Basutu head model, like I said to you, the driving corporate transformation, and then you look at the passenger grading system, you look at how the Employment Equity Commission is reporting, etc. You can see that the numbers, they don't really shift much anymore, especially at the C-suite level. We have partnered now with a foundation to develop a white paper on C-suite transformation, specifically. So that's one thing that we're currently working on now. We've gone through some of the formalities. We've had a workshop as well to align, and it's quite interesting. Something we really want to do for the country, that to develop that white paper. And we're not sure obviously how it's going to land on the other side when government has been formed, because we must still lobby. So we need to do the research as well. We've mapped out that and which stakeholders are sitting where and what you want from them, but the corporates, public sector, etc. We've defined the different role players and others that we want to go to for funding, etc. But it's there. We want to do it. We want to have it by November at our national conference, if possible, in terms of the first draft of the C-suite code, as we're calling it. If we're not done by November, we should be done early next year and to launch the white paper. And then from there, we do even more work, because we must go knocking now. We must try to influence Parliament to go into that space, and that's going to take some time as well, as you know, in terms of the process of the white paper, green paper, etc., and then public comments, and then that takes a couple of years. But we have embarked on that journey. We want to transform. We want to retain black talent at the top. I want to make sure that it's sustainable going forward, because that's where decisions are made. The C-suite, that's where policy is made, that's where economic power is. Everyone is happy with what's happening just below the C-suite, where you find lots of black people, but still white at the top, like Irish coffee. White at the top, black at the bottom. And we're not happy with that, and we must not be okay with that. We are not happy with that. We believe we deserve to manage, control, and own the economy and our image. Thank you very much.